what I really want to do is I want to really encourage everyone today to take advantage of our time with Emily and ask questions that only she can answer about her experience and the wisdom that she has to share with us about becoming a successful coach. If you have questions about the iPEC program, like how long it is, how does it work, what's included, payment plans, all of that kind of stuff, those are great questions too. And you can get those types of questions answered directly by speaking with an iPEC admissions coach. And Suzanne, the person behind the scenes, is going to put links in the chat and Facebook on how you can schedule an appointment to speak with an admissions coach and get those kinds of questions answered, okay? Now, if you're joining us on Zoom, how you're going to ask a question is you're just going to type your question into the little icon that looks like a little folder or a little chat bubble. And you can probably see that on like the bottom of the Zoom or on the side of your Zoom link. You just click that and you can type your question right in there and I'll be able to see it. If you're joining us via Facebook Live, you can just type your question right into the chat section and Suzanne will see it and then she's going to send it to me, okay? Which kind of brings me to the next piece of housekeeping. While we're talking to Emily, you're going to see me look away from the screen, and that's because I'm trying to listen to Emily and also read your questions so that I can ask her the next question. So please don't be distracted if you see me looking away from the screen or typing something to Suzanne, okay? Now, please do know, if you are thinking about iPEC, we did just open a couple of new locations. We've got Germany and the Netherlands, and of course we have London, we've got Canada, and we've got all across the United States, okay? So wherever you're joining us from, please feel to type in where you're joining us from as well, because one, we always love to see that. And two, it also helps us know that you can hear me because sometimes the technology doesn't work. So if you just want to type in that you're here, where you're calling in from, that would be great too. So without further ado, while people are typing their questions in, let's get this party started. And let's introduce Emily. So Emily, thank you so much for joining us. It's so nice for you to take time out of your busy day to be here with us today.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. And you guys, Emily is so incredibly nice. Feel free to ask her any of those coach-centric questions, business-related questions. She is awesome. I got to spend about 10 minutes chatting with her before the call, and she's great.
Yes.
While we wait for some questions.
Oh, sorry. Hey, don't ask me any iPEC enrollment related questions in terms of admissions and class schedule costs because I'm going to fabricate all of those answers. So yes, that's
very honest.
All other questions are fair game, so bring it.
Awesome. So Emily, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your journey while we wait for the questions to come in.
Yeah, so your intro was perfect. I don't know how else to top that. It's almost as if you know me, but yes, that's exactly right. My career really started off when I joined recruiting companies and became a headhunter essentially for Fortune 500 companies and Silicon Valley startups. And to me, after 6 years of doing it, there really was something missing. And it also became quite redundant in terms of the work and the scope that I was doing. I just knew, I didn't quite know what I wanted to do, but I just knew I wanted to do something more creative, something that had a little bit more diversity in my day-to-day and just really make a greater impact. The problem with recruiting, in my opinion, was that while I was able to give people really great jobs, like I was really poaching people out of companies and saying, hey, do you want to move over to Google and get 20% more in your salary and free lunch every day? That was like a very small percentage I was doing that for. A lot of the times I was actually rejecting candidates. For every job that one person gets placed, there's probably like over 500 people who get rejections. Ooh. And it's, it's kind of disheartening sometimes. And for me, I really wanted to be able to provide honest feedback because I think that's the only way that someone can learn and grow and change. But as a recruiter, you're not able to do that. You just open up a can of worms. There's a lot of like potential liability for the company. And so we always just keep it really straightforward. Thank you for applying, but we went with another candidate. And again, without the honest feedback and assessment, they continue to apply and not get anywhere. So yeah. Around that time, I also was in a company where I did not enjoy my my day to day. I didn't know what values were back then. And if you go through iPEC, you're going to not just learn about coaching, but you're going to learn about yourself. It really is an amazing experience. And I almost call it like life university. So I always tell my friends, if you don't know what you want to do, if you just feel like you want to up level your life, just do coaching, like go through a coaching certification program, because really, even if you don't become a coach, it's so valuable. Like these are life skills that I'm just carrying through with me everywhere. But when I went through iPEC, I started to learn more about values, and it started to become very clear why my last position that I was in was not a good fit. Like across the board, it just conflicted with every single one of my values. And I knew that I was miserable there. And so before I even quit, I decided I'm just going to start a website. I'm going to call it Cultivate, because I like the play on words of cultivate your life. And I didn't really know what I was selling back then. I did know that I had a lot of transferable skills though. And so when I first started, I ended up just reaching out to people on LinkedIn. Do you need help with your job search? And I realized there's a whole world out there for career support. And so we can dive into it a little bit more later, but in long story short, I started to see like, wow, there's a business. I'm solving a problem. And really at the end of the day, if you can solve a problem, you're in business. Everybody wants a solution and they're willing to pay for that if you're giving them value. So I started off that way. And then what I realized was while I joined a platform that called me a career coach, it wasn't until I actually talked to another coach. I actually had a client who hired me to review her resume, and I helped her with a resume. And in parallel to me, she was working with a coach, like a career coach. And the career coach looked at my resume that I wrote. She said, wow, this is phenomenal. Can I send you all of my clients who need resume support? And I was like, wait a minute, if you're a career coach, but you don't do resumes, what the heck do you do? And that's talked to me about mindset and talked to me about like the inner critic and all of the things that she helped her clients through in terms of the inner work. And that's when I had a light bulb moment, like, oh my gosh, everything I've been doing, despite calling myself a coach, I've been really a consultant, because I've been helping them with external strategies, very practical tips and advice. And a lot of the clients I started working with throughout the year, they all started, like I started recognizing all of them started feeling like this sense of shame for being unemployed, or a sense of rejection, or being not good enough because they went for jobs but didn't get the offers. So I just realized, like, if I can help people on the inner work with the mindset and also the external with the job search strategies, they can do anything. And so that's what really led me to find the iPEC, get almost certified, and just become this amazing career coach so I can make a greater impact around people who just really want to live happier careers and lives, because our careers do make up a third of our day. And so if we're not happy there, we're not happy in our day-to-day personal lives either.
Wow. Okay. So it sounds to me, just correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard you say is you figured out that there was a problem out there that needed to be solved, and solving that problem by going through iPEC, you realized solving that problem aligned with your values. So that was really going to be your sweet spot. So you're going to be like, I'm just going to be super happy doing this all the time. And then by going through iPEC, you did a lot of the self work, and you realize there's a difference between being a consultant and being a coach. And really the piece that really speaks to you is helping people change on the inside, and then you can make the outside real pretty, like the resume, and then they can go out and find their real sweet spot in the career that really speaks to them internally, not just finding their next thing and then being unhappy again.
Absolutely. That you nailed it, because I know so many people are not familiar with coaching. And so whenever they say, like, I have so many clients who come to me, they're like, Emily, I'm miserable in my job. I need to leave this place. Can you help me with a resume? And I'm always like, let's put a break in this, because as I dig further into their background, they have this pattern of always like joining a company, being unhappy, finding another company, being unhappy. And so those are the things that I'm more curious about. And those are the things that I really love working with people on, is let's really just take a step back so we can make 5 steps forward. And before we even get to your resume, what is it that you truly want? What is it that really lights you up? Really understanding their values and just being able to help them design a happier life so they're not on this hamster wheel of just going for one job after the next and kind of being stuck where I was before I found coaching. So I'm super passionate about coaching, and I honestly think like and I know it's new to a lot of people. Most clients I work with, I have to explain the process of what coaching is and really define that to them. But once they like realize, oh yeah, I can see like how I have these patterns and I want to break through these too. It just becomes a really great partnership, and they see the value of it. And then what's amazing is when they actually go through the coaching, they can feel the difference, and they no longer are on this hamster wheel. And it's not like I just need a resume every single 2 years. It's like, no, I'm gonna learn how to communicate what my needs are and find the right opportunities. So I love it, because I think a lot of career coaches, when you think about them, you do think it's just like resume strategy, LinkedIn strategy, but there's a whole mindset shift that has to occur if you really want to live a happier existence.
That is fantastic. I love that. Working on the inside in order to make the outside like align. That's brilliant. Brenna is asking, hi Brenna out there. And by the way, we've got people calling in from all over the place. We've got Marcos is from Argentina. Alexandra is joining us from Charlotte, North Carolina. Greg is in Chicago. We have Isabel from Germany. So we've got people from all over the world tuning in today. So hello to everybody out there. Brenna's got our very first question. She is really wanting to know, like, specifically, how did you first start? She says, how did you start getting clients? But I'm going to change it to be a little more specific. How did you first start getting your coaching clients? Because you'd said, you started out with this company as like a consultant, but when you had the mindset shift and realized, oh, this is the real deal over here, and here's my business. How did you first start getting your own coaching clients?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I did have a lot of business from my consulting days. And, if you can deliver really great value, you start to build referrals or people who are willing to be your referral. And that is like the best form of marketing, right? It's just word of mouth, because somebody's already vetted you. I think it's hard, more difficult when you first start early on, because you don't have a lot of credibility, right? Nobody knows your name. You don't have a brand established. People are like, what the heck is coaching? And so I would say that if you can just start, and iPEC does a really good job of this, start small, start with like 1 or 2 people, just offer like smaller packages, right? So I offered my packages when I was going through the iPEC training at a significant discount than what it is that I charge now as somebody who's really confident. Yeah. Because as your confidence goes up, your prices go up, and as you have more positive testimonials, your prices go up, and it's just you have a starting ground, right? And so it's like, what feels good to you, what feels fair to you, and then once you start to like have people who say, yeah, like I'm willing to try that out. And then you see them get positive results. You're like, okay, this works. But also what's nice about starting off on a informal capacity is just like, I'm trying to think about the first person I offered my services to. I think I charged them $100 an hour. I was like, we'll just start off this way. I'm going to put you in a 10 session container, and let's just see how it feels for you. And it ended up being $1,000, which is to me like really low. It's very different from my packages today and what they are. But what that allowed me to do was just be really flexible, because I was kind of practicing, I was testing things out, I was getting live feedback, and I was being very honest with them. This is something new that I'm trying out, and because of that, I'm offering a discounted rate. But I would really open this up to any suggestions or recommendations. And really, I think what was really helpful for me was even giving like mid-package evaluation. So after the first session, actually, I would ask, how did that feel for you? Is there anything that you want me to do differently? And just really being open to feedback, because that had really allowed me to develop my own style over time, and then also understand what is it that my audience really resonates with, what is it that they really like. And after doing that with about 5 clients, I started to develop a signature style, and I realized, oh, like instead of 10 sessions, people need 12 sessions. Like, this is because I realized, like, a lot of my clients, they would be almost at the edge of like where they needed to be at the end of 10. So then I made it 12, and it's just worked out so well. It's just like being in practice and being out there, not being afraid to like ask, but also being fair to yourself and your client. So what I mean by that is just being creative with, a starting off point, and knowing that this is a marathon, right? So where we start today, it's not like where you need to be forever, but you just continue growing. And as you, like, I know a lot of coaches, they have a scaling system, like for 5 people or the next 10 clients, I'm going to keep it at this price, and then I'm going to increase. And so just do what feels good for you. You're going to have a lot of inner critics come up, as iPEC calls them, gremlins, which are the little voices inside of you, but that just means you're growing. And that's like the beautiful thing too, is I had so many gremlins during this entire journey, and I still have them today. But I love that iPEC teaches you all of these self-coaching tools to just move past that. And, I think gremlins are actually really welcomed in my life, because it means that I'm doing something that scares me a little. It means that I'm growing and stretching myself. And that's, I think, the best thing that you can do along the journey.
So everybody out there, I'm going to assure you right now, you're going to get a recording of this whole thing, because Emily just covered so much stuff. She basically just gave everybody like a 6-week course on how to build your business in that one answer. So if you do nothing else, get the recording of this call and listen to what she just said there and break it down into pieces, because everything you just said was so incredibly brilliant and valuable. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got this question coming in from Carla. Carla is asking, given that I'm already a consultant and I do informal coaching at work, couldn't I just do coaching without getting certified? What edge did your iPEC certification give you that you couldn't have gotten otherwise? And this is such a brilliant question.
Yeah, that is a really great question. I will share that if you're starting your own solo practice, you probably don't need you don't need a certificate, because nobody really asks you for one. But if you ever decide to work for a company, or you want to consult for a company, which it depends again, are you going for individuals or corporations? I would say that it's almost like a degree, right? Like, nobody really asks you, do you have a bachelor's degree? But it's an insurance, if you will. Like, it just adds value, and it helps open you up to new opportunities. Sorry, 1 second.
Oh, of course. No, are you kidding? We're like hammering you with questions.
I've been doing a lot of talking this week, so I apologize. But I would say it's almost like just insurance, right? Or like a master's degree, right? Because some job descriptions, put everything in career job searching terms, because this is my role. But, I think it's always just a value add. And every once in a while, you will get clients who do really want to know, do you have a certification? And, if you do, that's great. You've just earned their business. But a lot of people, they don't really know like what certifications are. However, I will share with you, when I first started, I called myself a coach, and I thought I was doing coaching. And then I went through the whole iPEC training and realized, wow, I have been a terrible coach in the sense that I've been a consultant and a mentor, and it's a whole new language. Really, I thought I was coaching for a year, and I think there's a big and really large misconception of what coaching is versus what consulting is. And so if you are calling yourself a coach, I think there's always room to grow and learn. I mean, even though I went through iPEC a year ago, I feel like I'm still learning and I'm still practicing my coaching, because there's just so many tools, so many techniques and different ways of getting your client the best, like their inner wisdom, that I wouldn't have been able to learn if it wasn't through the iPEC system. So I guess in short, what I'm saying is technically, no, you don't need a coaching certification if you want to start your own business. But again, it doesn't hurt, and it's only going to add value, if anything.
It sounds like it's not only going to add value from just a security standpoint, like you said, like somebody being like, oh, okay, you can do what you can do. But it also sounds like it adds that internal value to your point of, you're like, oh, I actually was a terrible coach before because I didn't really know what I was doing. So it's like, it adds the internal value of actually doing what you say that you can do.
Absolutely. I think the coaching also, not just in my business, but in my life, like I can't emphasize this enough. I think if I were not a coach, like I never went through the certification program, I would have probably, how do I say this? I feel like I would have flatlined in my business. Like I wouldn't have seen as much growth, but because I'm able to just self-coach myself through my inner critics, really conquer fears that I, like never in a million years would I have done this type of webinar in front of all these strangers. But with iPEC and just like the coaching that I've worked on and my self-growth and self-improvement, I'm here like, and I'm doing this actually on my day-to-day, not day-to-day, but like maybe week to week in my business. And it's just allowed me to like conquer fears that I wouldn't have otherwise if I didn't know what coaching was and or gotten coached and or just gone through this certification program. So I'm just really grateful.
Wow. Okay. On the heels of that, I've seen a lot of questions coming in, and they're all a little bit different, but they're all really similar. So I'm just going to ask kind of an overarching question. Like I can see this one from, I'm going to mispronounce your name. I'm so sorry. I think it's Pritesh. But a lot of people are basically asking, why did you choose iPEC? This one is like, which ICF certified institutes did you consider before deciding on iPEC? And other people are saying, why did you pick iPEC? So I'm just going to kind of group all those questions because we have so many to get through in such a short time. Is there anything in particular that made you pick iPEC over all the other coach training programs, the ICF accredited programs that are out there?
Yeah, so I'm going back through, trying to think back on what my logic was back then. I had first heard of coaching because of an iPEC grad, and she had nothing but positive things to say. And I'm a very thorough consumer in terms of anything that I purchase, especially any type of investment that's over $1,000. Like you bet I'm looking at everything. And so I ended up just doing like the Google rabbit hole, researching a bunch of things. And for me, I was drawn to iPEC for a couple of reasons. I know price was one. At the time, and I don't know if prices have changed, but at the time, it was the least expensive, or it was the least expensive compared to a lot of the other like CTI and some other really large organizations. So that factored into it because I was on a budget. This came out of my own pocket, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like be frugal, but also make sure it's quality. And so the fact that somebody had recommended iPEC and had nothing but positive things to say, I was kind of like already sold on that. So going back to what I was saying earlier, when you're not an established brand, but you can have word of mouth, that's the best form of advertisement. And then I think what really drew me to you guys was the Energy Leadership Index assessment, because I had heard from someone who had worked with an iPEC coach before how powerful that was. And it was the only organization, like I just thought to myself, I think my thought process was, if I'm going to go through a certification program and I'm going to pay a comparable amount, I'd rather have two certifications because I know that from my friend who told me that she took the Energy Leadership Index assessment, she said it was really powerful and it's what helped her like say yes to more additional coaching. And I realized like, oh, if I go to any of these other institutions, I wouldn't be able to have that as a tool. And actually it's been really helpful in my business as well, because for people who are not familiar with coaching, I would just start them off with that. I think first off, it's really powerful, even if they don't convert to a bigger client or longer term client, they're going to walk away with so much value and they're just going to learn so much about themselves. And so I always recommend that as kind of like a just a taste of what coaching is like, and understanding what coaching is about. And it's been really great. So I would say those three things. And then in addition to that, I really liked your guys' marketing and just how clean and modern it was, because that's kind of the feel that I was going for in my business. Like, I didn't have it fully fleshed out, but I knew I wanted something that was, something like modern and chic. And it just, like, from a consumer standpoint, it really drew me in.
Awesome. And if anybody out there doesn't know what the Energy Leadership Index assessment is, feel free to throw that in there as a question and we'll answer it for you. But I'm going to go ahead and move on because you guys all might be familiar with it. I don't want to make an assumption. So Hugo is asking, how long have you been a coach and have you recovered your investment? And then he's also asking, can you expand on potential income? I'm not entirely sure what he means by that, but so it's, how long have you been a coach and have you recovered your investment, and can you expand on potential income?
Yeah. Okay. So I will say that when I first started my business, it was June 2016. And my first year, I was working part-time because I actually quit my job to go travel the world. And that's the beautiful part about coaching, is you can do it anywhere. So that's one of my biggest reasons of designing my career this way, is because to me, one of my values, going back to this, is freedom. And I didn't want to be tied to like this 9 to 5. I have to clock in and clock out at a certain time. That really drew me to coaching. And I realized, I'm just going to work from my laptop. And I called myself the nocturnal career coach my first year because it was literally all over Europe. And I was sightseeing during the day, but with the time zone differences. And so many of my clients being in the US, it was perfect because at like 9 p.m. I could jump on calls, and I do calls to like 1 a.m. and repeat that. But my first year, so I'll be really transparent. My salary as a corporate recruiter was $100,000. And when I left the corporate world, so just background, I'm a first generation Chinese American, and my parents are very, very against like entrepreneurship, because to them, the American dream is you graduate from college, you get a really stable cushion position, you have security, and then you buy a house. And, so I was dealing with a lot in terms of my parents' expectations and really managing that and really going against them for the first time and saying, no, this is my life. Like, this is what I want to do. Wow. And I think also,
congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I mean, my parents eventually came around to it, but one of their biggest questions was, why would you leave like stability, cushion? I mean, $100,000 for a bachelor's degree. And I have a liberal arts degree, by the way. So it's, to them, they were just like, are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? And I just realized though, like the cost of staying where I was much greater than $100,000. Like, I just was miserable. And so I took this as an opportunity to explore, but at the same time, while I had savings that I had developed for my year abroad, I also am very, very frugal. So going back to like, cost analysis on which program is the right price point. But basically I have this. So I've been working on my money mindset as well, but one of the things that I realize is I don't feel comfortable dipping into my savings. Like, I know it's there, and I purposely saved up for this trip, but I wanted to see how can I make money while traveling. And it turned out, with PayPal, with Skype, with Zoom, with the clients, like you could do it anywhere. And what's amazing is as I started traveling, I was only working part-time, but my first year I made $50,000. And that was just from, so I thought, and I told my parents, look, like I made this and this was working part-time. So if I come back to the States and, get actually settled and work full-time, then I can more than make up my corporate recruiter salary, right? So basically that was the first year. And then my second year is when I crossed more than what I made in my corporate career. So now my parents are really happy. They're like, wow, yeah, you go for it. Like, we told you should go, like, quit your job. So no, but it's been really great. And I would say that Now I'm like, it's what's amazing about being your own business is that there is no cap, right? So like if I was in corporate, yeah, sure, like I could quit my job or leave my job and leapfrog my salary maybe 20% each year. And maybe I wouldn't want to leave each year because I don't want to look like a job hopper. But, my ceiling or my trajectory as a corporate recruiter probably would have maxed out around 140. Like if I became a recruiting director, maybe it's like 160. But, now I can make more than that. And what's amazing is there's no ceiling. Like whatever I want to make, I can make. And I think that's like the really cool thing, going back to freedom and the values. Like that's what really excites and draws me to this coaching business. I don't know if I answered the question.
Yeah. So Hugo, if that didn't answer your question, let us know. I think that it did. I love that, because the other piece is, yeah, you can make however much you want. But going back to one of the first things that you talked about was you're in alignment with who you are, and you like are loving what you're doing. So there's also that piece too. There's the monetary piece, and then there's the like what feeds your soul piece. So I think that's beautiful. I've got some questions here coming in from different people. Melissa specifically, they're all wanting to know, would you suggest to other people, like, how do you figure out your specialty or your niche, like that sweet spot of the who, not necessarily your values, but like, who should you work with? How do you figure that out?
I think a really powerful question is if you had all of your like finances taken care of, like you could just be selfish and decide, I don't need to necessarily work for the sake of putting a roof over my head. Like all of that's taken care of. What would I want to do? And who is it that I want to serve? And one of the questions you can ask yourself too is, what is the biggest problem that like irks me the most in this world? And why does that irk you? And let those really inform you to understand what it is that you want to do. But the easiest way to get started as a coach, in my opinion, is because as a coach, even though you're not the expert, so the whole coaching philosophy is like the client's always the expert. The client has the answers deep rooted inside of them. You're the expert in coaching and you're extracting that from you. But a lot of the times I find in coaching that your clients will want to hire you based on your expertise. And you're also going to feel more confident starting off when you can have like this treasure trove of things that you can bring to the table. And then you can branch out after that. But I think it's always easiest just to kind of stay within what you know and what you're comfortable with. That's not a hard, fast rule, so I don't want to like say you need to, but I think it's helpful. So if you think about it now, and I tell this to all of my clients, if you're currently in a job, you're solving some type of problem, right? And you're like, even if you're, for instance, I don't know, an engineer, like you're solving a problem, right? But you can find your niche and understand like, okay, this is all my background that I've accumulated in terms of my experience over the years. This is like what I'm really good at. This is like the types of people that I'm comfortable speaking with. So kind of let those inform you to help you identify what is it that you really want to solve. I have a friend who's a relationship coach, and she, like, pulling from her own personal experiences, she had a lot of relationships she had to overcome. And, she was a victim of abuse. So that's kind of where she felt called and drawn to go into that direction of. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I think it's really just kind of identifying what do you want to do. And I really, really emphasize this because when you're starting your own coaching business, you're your own marketing department. You're your own sales department. And if you're not genuinely excited and interested about the topic or the types of people that you're serving, it's going to be really hard for you to show up day in and day out. So for me, I'm passionate about career and business. And so it's easy for me to like think about, ooh, I want to write the status update about this. Like, oh, I just saw this like documentary and this is like how it relates to career. And I can get creative and tie those things in because I'm passionate about this topic. So that's like one other, so in addition to like, do you have the expertise and feel comfortable and confident talking about this one area, do you also feel excited about it? Because this is hopefully to be established. You're going to be doing this for quite some time. You really need to make sure that you're not dreading it. So that's my biggest advice to that.
Well, no, I love that. I think the other thing that people think that they have to be like locked in. And maybe if you go through a different program, you do, but like at iPEC, you become a certified professional coach. So
Mhm.
in 10 years, you were like, you know what, I don't want to talk about careers anymore. I do want to help people find the love of their life. You could totally do that because you're a
Oh,
certified professional coach. You don't have a certification in career coaching. You have a
right.
certification that you are a professional coach. And so you can change that specialty too. Like I always like to remind people, just pick something, just get started, see if you like it,
Totally. Yeah, and I'll share, even though I work with people in career coaching, I think like IPEC does such a good job of this in terms of like the wheel of life, but you are just an expert in the coaching process. So I have clients who, ideally we're working on their career transition or getting them their next promotion, but they'll have things like, I can sense from their tone when they start the phone, I'm like, oh, you sound really stressed. What's going on? And they'll be talking about like their marital problems. And I'm not like, I would have never advertised myself as a relationship coach, but because I know the coaching process and I can take them on this journey of like deep questions, I'm able to help them with that. And to me, is actually helpful because I always tell them if we can improve like one area of your life, if we can like take the stress off of you, you're going to have so much more energy to like focus and show up at work the next day, and really not have to live in like this mediocre. So it's all kind of interconnected, but you'll learn as you go through the process just how to be a coach in general, regardless of the topic. But typically, you're going to want to attract one person. It's kind of like when you're marketing, you're talking to everybody, like nobody is hearing you. So that's why you want to like pick a niche or a specialization, at least in the beginning.
Love it. Love it. Greg is wanting to know how soon. So the question is, how soon can you start building your clientele or start coaching? Do you really need to get through the whole course and officially certified? And Greg, the answer is no. With iPEC's program anyway, you can actually start taking on paying coaching clients after module 1. That's the technical answer. What was your journey? Like, when did you first start taking on your actual first official coaching client? And like, what does that even look like from where you started to where you are now?
Yeah. So when I started Mod 1, I believe it was July 2017. At that time, I had already had clients, again, kind of when I was calling myself a career coach, but I was really consulting. And after Mod 1, from that day forward, I was just like, oh, I have all these tools, because like that weekend is intense and they just hit you with like all of these different like tools and techniques. And I was like, ooh, I'm so excited to start testing these out. And so because I had existing clients already, I started to use a lot of the tools that I was learning. And so I would say that even before I became a certified, I'm still not certified, but ever since I started joining iPEC, I've been just practicing that every day. And again, these are things that you can practice, like even with your friends, like when you're meeting up with them and you're having a conversation, just like really cool tools that you can start to develop, because again, it is like learning a new language. And so for me, I just took every opportunity I could to really start doing that. At the time, I already kind of had like a sales funnel in place. And so I started to get new clients like right after Mod 1, I'd have sales consults, and I started to just, again, I gave discounts to these people because I said, hey, look, this is what I want to try out. This is a package. This is what my normal rate would be. But in full transparency, I'm undergoing some training right now and would love to get your feedback. So I'm offering like this really low this really low package in terms of price, but we're still getting the same amount of sessions, and I'm still going to consult you. So I think my assurance there was really letting them know, like, hey, I'm still going to get you the results, but I just want to try out some things new. And they were very receptive and open to that. And so I would say that I started, again, I maybe took like 5 clients around that time, around that price point. And then I started to just like get a lot of practice. I started to get like even better results than when I was just doing the consulting thing. And that's ultimately what allowed me to like continue growing my business. And I think the last part is like, do you need to be certified, right? So the answer is no, because I'm still not certified. Actually, I just finally turned in all of my exam material, like pre-exam materials, like all the homework that's needed. But I've just been so busy like running this coaching practice. So I finally, got everything together over the holiday break. I just carved out all of the homework, listened to all the teleclasses, put in the opening and closing codes. But I'm going to be taking my certification exam this month. So
Yay,
I hope that answers it. And in all fairness, they told me like after mod 3, which is the very last mod, that you have a year to get everything in and become certified. And I'm just a procrastinator. So if people tell me like you have 3 months, I'll do it in 3 months. If they tell me a year, I'm going to do it in a year. So that's why I kind of fell behind too.
So anybody out there who's a procrastinator, you're in good company. So just briefly, I've got a lot of people have been asking, what is the Energy Leadership Index assessment? I'm going to answer that real quick because I've got some questions here that we've been talking about a lot of business related stuff. And I've got some questions here that are more that internal growth piece. And I want to be sure to ask those. So everybody out there, the Energy Leadership Index assessment is an online assessment that you do with your client. And it basically shows them on paper how they're showing up in their life, how they show up when they're super stressed, how they show up when things are going great, and what's their average resonating level of energy. So how do they show up just on a day-to-day basis? And when you're starting a coaching relationship, being able to show somebody on paper that information and then being able to coach around it is just a game changer. And the added benefit, something that Emily was talking about of, having value behind you, having that name behind you. iPEC has done a lot of research. They've spent money to have this research. So we have research papers that back all this stuff up, that it actually works, and here's why, and blah, blah, blah. So when you can present all of that to a client, it really does kind of set you apart as a coach. So that's all I'm going to say about that. If you have more questions about that, I'm going to suggest that you speak directly with an admissions coach because they can go a little more deep dive for you on the technicalities of that. But Isabel is asking this really great question, and it's this internal question. And if it's too personal, please just say so. But she's wanting to know, what were the biggest challenges that you faced during the training program? Like, this isn't a business thing. This is like internal,
So much.
Great question, Isabel.
Yeah, no, I love this question. I'm happy to answer it. I think, so before going through iPEC, aside from quitting my job, my life had been kind of steady. I would call it like really steady and safe because every day was kind of the same. Like, when people ask you, hey, how's it going? And you say, oh, same old, same old. That was my life for like about 3 years, or actually like 5 years. And I would say that when I went through iPEC training, that opened up like a huge can of worms for me in terms of my insecurities because at the time, again, I had paid clients, I was calling myself a coach, and I had like this whole identity crisis of like, oh my gosh, now that I'm going through this coaching like certification program and I've been calling myself a coach, like, what does this mean? Because this is like such a new language to me and I've been doing everything wrong, right? So I had like every like day as I was going through this 9-month program, I was just like constantly feeling imposter syndrome. And again, this comes up for everyone, and just knowing that it comes up is like really liberating to know everybody else around you is feeling that, because I think that so much of our roles, we're putting on a mask. Like it's always like fake it until you make it. And you look at someone and they exude so much confidence and you're just like, wow, how did they get there? And what we see is like the final version of them, right? But we don't like know their entire journey. And that like just putting that into that perspective has helped me a lot, like overcome this journey. But what I loved about iPEC is that everybody's so open and vulnerable. Like it's really like a group, I don't know, like bonding session, because everybody's just so open and they're openly talking about their inner critics. And it was just really nice to hear like, oh, wow, I'm not alone. But as I was going through the program, it was really just I think because I had paid clients already and I wanted to be the best coach for them, I was always just practicing, like no matter what. And maybe this is why I deferred all my homework in terms of like the life workbook and stuff. I was like constantly devouring, Tony Robbins, Marie Forleo. Like I was like doing the business stuff and the like getting my hands on any type of personal development, personal growth type books as possible. And that was my way of like overcoming these inner critics, because I realized like, oh shoot, like I really want to deliver. Like I know these investments are not small for a lot of people. Like I want to make sure I'm delivering the best product. And so I would say in that year, like 2017, when I look back on it, is so interesting because I feel like in that year, I grew more than I had in like the past 10 years of my life. Like no joke. I was just like, I learned more than I ever did in college. I learned so much about myself and like the just pushing beyond the fears. Like the first time, so one thing that's really important for coaches that want to become independent coaches is when you think about marketing, you really have like marketing is the lifeblood of your business. And without marketing, like you're not going to have any clients. So you have to play your strengths. Some people it's public speaking, which is great because you can talk to so many people at once and get so many people asking you for your business card. For me, I'm so deathly afraid of public speaking, and it's something that I've been openly sharing, but I think with my authority and what I've been able to build in terms of my brand visibility, like last year, I got invited to a lot of public speaking events. Like people would ask, would you mind speaking? And I kept saying no, because I just couldn't muster up the courage and the energy to do so. And that was like, just inner critics coming out. And like, when I talk about my personal growth journey, it's like me just having to realize, okay, it's not really life and death situation. Like the only way to get better is to practice and to step out there. So I started doing Toastmasters and yada, yada. And I started to like finally go to public speaking events, like at the tail end of 2018. And it worked out great, but it's just like, you learn so much about yourself during this journey, and you need to like continuously evolve and grow and really just like the best way I can describe it is like when I was in corporate, I just had one job, right? And it was just like, okay, I'm going to do this well. I know that I have consistent income coming through no matter what. Even if I don't show up today, I can get paid because I have paid time off. But as an entrepreneur, as a coach with your own private practice, like you're doing everything you can to like continuously up level. And like you're always trying to be like the better version of you were like the day before or a month ago or 6 months ago. And I think it's really cool because before like this coaching journey, like I didn't really have a lot of motivation. Again, everything was kind of like comfortable. It wasn't like awesome, but it wasn't bad. It was just good, And now I feel like I'm in that state where I'm like thriving. And when we talk about like people living to their max potential and people like really using only 10% of their brain, I definitely was feeling that. But now like through this journey and this personal growth development, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's more than 10% because I do feel like it's been growing a lot more. But yeah, like even my husband, he says like, wow, you've really like grown the past year out of the 5 years I've known you. Like you've grown the most. And I feel like you've done more this 1 year than you did the past 5 years of your life. And it's just really crazy to think about.
Wow. I mean, the great question, Isabel, because wow. I mean, it really sounds like what I'm taking away from that is, you don't have to go into coaching because you're in pain or trying to make some big change. You don't have to go into coaching for any of those reasons, but what you're going to find through coaching when you do that internal work is really that internal shift and that growth. And it sounds like that was your biggest challenge was, well, I'm comfortable. Do I really want to put myself through this uncomfortable growth period? And when you leaned into that, it was just like, phew, everything opened up for you.
Yeah. And, every day I have inner critics come up, and those are kind of like the imposter syndrome, basically. But it's something that I'm moving past, but I think it's like important to know, because I think a lot of people, like whenever you're investing in yourself, it's either like you don't fully trust yourself. Like maybe you're thinking, will I really recoup this investment? Or can I really quit my job and start my own business? Whatever that is, because the change is something that we're not comfortable with, right? It's kind of like the fear of the unknown, or like the ambiguity effect. Like so many people are it's much easier for people to like stay where they're at, even though the consequences are greater than going after what they want, because at least where they're at, it's like predictable. But I just want to share that, because if that is you right now, like you're listening to this and you're thinking, wow, that's me, like I want to change my life, but I haven't, just know, like through this coaching certification program, you're going to learn how to like overcome all of that. But not only that, like you're just going to live a better life. Like even if you, like, I can't stress this enough, because I don't think people like need to go to a coaching certification program just because they want to start a business. I really think everybody should do it. Like I kept telling my Mod 3 instructor that they should really make this like a prerequisite in college. Like everybody should go through life coaching certification, because you just live like such a more abundant life, and a life of possibilities when you can really like embrace the fear and like really just step into it.
It sounds like, no, I love that you talked about that, because we actually have a hard time expressing that. You know, people come to us and they ask very straight ahead questions, and what we want to tell them is that all that stuff, it's just the stuff, it's going to get worked out. When you go through the program, so much changes internally, and you're able to answer those questions for all the straight ahead questions. You're able to answer those for yourself. And if you can't figure out the internal stuff first, then this is all just noise over here. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. I think it's really important for people to know and to understand. So thank you.
You're welcome.
No, I love that. Is there, just in the interest of time, I know that there's a lot of questions. I'm seeing a lot of questions that, again, I'm gonna, Suzanne, person behind the scenes that nobody can see, if you could put that link in again of how people can speak directly with an iPEC coach, because I'm seeing a lot of questions like, you know, do you refer clients to counselors, and how many hours a week do you work, and blah, 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 all of those types of things. You know, how many hours a week Emily works as opposed to how many hours you want to work is going to be a different thing. Do we refer people, our clients, to counselors when it's necessary? Yeah, and we're going to tell you how to do that as part of the training. You know, as coaches, we are not therapists, and we don't work in that modality. I'm seeing questions about mentorships too. So those kinds of questions, I'm going to refer you guys to an admissions coach on those. And just in the interest of time, what is the one thing that you would want everybody to take away from this time with you today? Like what's the wonderful, big, juicy, like if I could share one thing with you that would change your life, like what would you want to share with people?
I want to say just do it. I mean, honestly, I am so grateful for iPEC, and I just think that it's opened up a whole new door of possibilities and opportunities. And what's really cool, and I tell this to all of my corporate clients, because again, I work with corporate professionals. And so I think corporate professionals are very different. Like we're wired differently from entrepreneurs. And this was something that I had to also overcome for myself. Because in corporate, we're used to relying on our managers to invest in us, or our employers, right? And we're used to just kind of following instructions and doing things that we think we need. But even now, when I work with my corporate clients, I could tell a lot of them are on the fence about investing in themselves because they haven't really done it before, minus college. But this is exactly the same type of investment, although I think it's a lot more practical and the return is a lot higher. Well, I can't say that because over the long term, but it can be definitely a lot higher. And what I would just say is it's so important to invest in yourself, because once you have these skills, nobody can take that away from you. It's going to be there with you forever. And so if there's any, if you're on the fence about coaching, is this the right fit for me? I think with anything, it's what you make out of it. But and I don't know, like, I think there's just a lot of transformation that occurs in just like that transaction of like, I'm going to like say yes to myself. And I trust myself that no matter what, I'm going to like, because I saw some questions come through about like, the investment and stuff, but like, if you trust yourself, and if you don't fully trust yourself, trust me, like iPEC will help you build that trust. But again, it's what you make out of it and what you want to put into it, right? So like what you mentioned earlier about the hours, like the nice thing is I can create my own hours. Some weeks I'll work really hard. Yes, I'll work like 60 hours a week, but then after like a successful, after that things are done and that's all set, like next week I'm going on a week vacation in Hawaii and I'm not going to touch anything business related. So, it's all kind of ebbs and flows, but it's what you want to make out of it. And just know like it is an investment, but it's an investment in yourself that nobody else can ever take away.
I love that. That is, yes. Absolutely. So everybody out there, if you would like to speak with an admissions coach, if you have questions we weren't able to answer here today, please go ahead and click that link. Also know if you would like to take advantage of the Advanced Standing program. Advanced Standing allows you to do some of the curriculum prior to class even starting, and iPEC will actually give you a little bit of money back if you complete that work. So we want to encourage you to start your journey. And that's a lot of that part is the internal piece. Please know that Advanced Standing will close on February 14th. So you definitely need to speak with an admissions coach sooner rather than later. Also, if anybody would like to work with you, Emily, if they're like, you know what, I really just want to change my career and I really want to work with you. Suzanne, can you please post Emily's website, and maybe you could just tell us a little bit about what it would be like to work specifically with you as a coach?
Sure, I'd love to. So I basically specialize in helping corporate professionals really up-level their careers. So a lot of people who come to me, they are looking for some type of transition, and that could be, I'm starting my own side hustle, I just want to like hop to a different company, different location, different industry, different role. But basically what I work with people on is just getting clarity first and foremost, and then really starting to work on the strategy, because I do believe like everything is figure outable, everything is reverse engineered, but it starts with getting really clear. What is it that you want? Why do you want it? And then we can fill in the blanks. So I hope that helps, but I think my program is very customized, so it just kind of depends on you and what your goals are. And I typically work with one-on-one clients for 6 months. So that's kind of the package, not the package, but kind of like the duration of what coaching is like for me.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Okay, so everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Emily, thank you so much for joining us. We know you didn't have to be here. We know that you are super, super busy. Thank you so much for volunteering to speak to all of our prospective students and answer all of their questions. And hopefully we can have you back in the future after you've done your next scaling, and we'll be able to talk about what that looks like. So I'm really excited for the future for you. Thank you. It was a pleasure. Nice to meet everyone. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful day. And we will see you next time. Take care. Bye.